$9 billion. That is what FIFA is set to collect from this World Cup. And the players who just made that happen, they don't get a dollar. Not from FIFA directly. The organization collecting $9 billion from the sport these players gave their entire lives to has zero legal obligation to pay them anything. At least, that's what everyone assumed was the story. Because there is something buried in FIFA's financial structure that most sports journalists missed completely. The Club World Cup, the tournament players protested, fans ignored, and European leagues threatened to sue over, paid out more in prize money than the actual World Cup. That's not a typo, by the way. But this story doesn't start with the prize money. It starts with understanding just how large the machine actually is. FIFA runs its finances in 4-year cycles, each one anchored by a World Cup. The current cycle is targeting $13 billion. That is nearly double what they generated in the previous cycle. Same organization, same sport, almost twice the money in 4 years. The 2026 World Cup alone accounts for roughly $8.9 billion of that total. Here's where it comes from. Broadcasting rights. $3.8 billion, a 22% jump from Qatar 2022. In the United States specifically, where the games are being played, media rights increased by 94% in a single cycle. Because America is hosting, broadcasters paid nearly double. Sponsorship between $2.4 and $2.7 billion. New partners this cycle include DoorDash, Bank of America, and Saudi Aramco. Saudi Aramco, one of the world's largest oil producers, is now a FIFA global partner, with their name rotating alongside Coca-Cola and Visa on pitch side boards at every match. If you're wondering how that's even legal, so is everyone else. That is the scale of what we're working with. Pay attention to this next detail because it explains everything that follows. FIFA made a very big deal about the prize money for this tournament. And on first read, the numbers do look impressive. $50 million to the winning nation, a record, up from the $42 million Argentina received in Qatar. The runner-up gets $33 million. Third place gets $29 million. Even the teams eliminated in the group stage, the ones who might not win a single match, collect $9 million just for qualifying. In total, FIFA is distributing $871 million to the 48 competing nations. Until you compare it to what the tournament actually generates. 10 cents on the dollar. The other 90 cents stays inside FIFA's structure. But that percentage is not even the real problem, because that $871 million does not go to the players. It goes to national federations. The English FA, Brazil's CBF, Germany's DFB. Each governing body receives the full check from FIFA, and then each governing body decides what the players receive. There is no FIFA-mandated minimum player payment. None. A federation could, technically, return zero to their players from the World Cup prize pool. Some have come uncomfortably close. The people those fans bought jerseys to watch get whatever their federation feels like sharing. But the federation is not the last person in line. There is a third party most people never think about, and understanding how much they get paid reveals the whole system. When Kylian Mbappe or Erling Haaland gets called up for the World Cup, their club loses them. Manchester City, Real Madrid. They release a multi-$100 million asset for 6 weeks. No compensation, no recourse. Or at least, that used to be the arrangement. FIFA created something called the Club Benefits Program. For 2026, $355 million is being distributed to clubs whose players were called up. Every club that releases a player receives a share. Think about what that means. The organizations already paying these players hundreds of millions in salary receive an additional $355 million payment from FIFA just for releasing them to represent their countries. That's the kind of number that makes accountants cry. So, prize money flows to federations, who decide what players get. Compensation flows to clubs, who decide what players get from that. And the players themselves sit at the end of both chains, waiting to find out what both parties feel like handing over. Now, to be fair, the elite players at this tournament are not going broke. Ronaldo crossed $1 billion in net worth. Mbappe earns around $107 million per year between his Real Madrid salary and Nike, Hublot, and Dior. The 11 highest-paid players at this World Cup collectively earned close to $1 billion in the last 12 months alone. But there are 1,248 players here. This financial architecture was not designed with most of them in mind. And then there is the Club World Cup. This decision seemed small when FIFA announced it. It wasn't. In 2025, FIFA ran the expanded Club World Cup in the United States. 32 clubs, a format nobody had requested, shoehorned into an already impossible football calendar. Players hated it. The Players' Union called it a threat to their welfare. European leagues threatened legal action over fixture congestion. Club managers said their squads were exhausted. Fans largely skipped the group stage. Some venues looked like practice matches inside arenas, built for 80,000 people. FIFA went ahead anyway, and then they paid out $1 billion in prize money. The Club World Cup paid out more than the actual World Cup. The tournament that nobody wanted, that players publicly opposed, that featured near-empty group stage stadiums, paid out more in prizes than the greatest sporting event in human history. Why? Because the Club World Cup had no captive audience. Real Madrid, Chelsea, Manchester City were not going to participate in a new tournament without a compelling financial reason. So FIFA structured the prize pool to make participation worth their while. They needed those clubs, so they paid for them. The World Cup nations have no such leverage. 48 countries show up because their populations demand it. No negotiation is required. No financial incentive is necessary. So FIFA pays 10 cents on the dollar, keeps the rest, and calls it a record-breaking prize pool. People thought they had the full picture of how FIFA operates. They didn't. The leverage calculation is the whole story, and it shows up everywhere once you know to look for it. If you're finding this useful, hit subscribe. The rest of this video gets into exactly where that remaining $8+ billion actually lands. And the answer is weirder than you think. So $871 million to federations, $355 million to clubs. What happens to the remaining $8+ billion? FIFA is a nonprofit. Officially. In practice, what nonprofit status means for FIFA is that surplus funds are reinvested into football governance and development, administered by officials who set their own compensation, manage their own budget, and face no external audit requirements that a publicly traded company would face. FIFA's president Gianni Infantino reportedly earns somewhere between $2 and $4 million a year. The broader compensation structure for senior FIFA leadership is not publicly disclosed. They are a private organization. Disclosure is not required. And this next part is the one that even FIFA's supporters struggle to defend. FIFA cut its own operating budget for 2026 by more than $100 million, not to increase prize money for the competing nations, not to improve player welfare programs, to improve their own internal financial position. Then there is the sponsorship pool, $2.4 to $2.7 billion. Tier 1. Global partners like Aramco and Visa pay between $100 and $200 million per cycle for the right to have their brand at every FIFA event globally. All 16 Tier 1 positions for 2026 are sold out. Not 1 cent of that pool goes to the players. Mbappe's goal in a World Cup semi-final is what makes Visa's logo worth $100 million on that pitch. His cut from the sponsorship pool, $0. Because the contract between FIFA and its sponsors does not include the players who make those deals worth signing. $9 billion generated, 10 cents on the dollar returned to the competing nations. The players waiting at the end of every chain to find out what's left. That is the complete picture. None of this means the World Cup is not worth watching. It obviously is. What is happening in these stadiums is genuinely extraordinary football, but what makes this financial structure so durable is the same thing that makes the tournament beautiful. Billions of people love football more than they will ever care about where the money from it actually goes. FIFA does not need to change any of this because the fans show up regardless. The nations compete regardless. The sponsors sign regardless. The broadcasters bid higher every 4 years regardless. At the start of this video, FIFA called this a record-breaking prize distribution for players and nations. $871 million, the most money ever returned to competing teams. 10 cents on the dollar. The game is real. Everything built around it is something else entirely. You now know how $9 billion moves through a private non-profit that answers to nobody, why the Club World Cup paid out more in prizes than the actual World Cup, and why the players those fans are wearing jerseys for sit at the end of every payment chain. If that is the kind of breakdown you want every week, the real financial architecture behind things that look different on the surface, subscribe. That is the whole channel.